Okay, I am. Hopefully, you guys can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me. For some reason, I wasn't able to reconnect, but now I can. Just give me a thumbs up if you can actually hear this. Let me know. Are you able to hear me? Okay, good. Thanks, Audrey. All right, I'm going to take a look at the Bryan Kohberger. Why the hell did he not appeal? But more shockingly, I just saw something in a read. I was looking at this and I'm like, well, how is this going to go now? Um, and I thought we would be talking about Ann Taylor, or, Bryan is going to somehow construct some sort of argument for himself. But you know what? I looked at this twice, and I'm just going to make a statement. And you guys are going to chime in with what you think. From the beginning, I've seen a woman with dark hair, and I keep seeing this as being connected to this case somehow, and possibly connected to Bryan, maybe not, but definitely the Idaho 4. So, part of what I was looking at, and I'm just going to say what I just saw, and I can't even believe I just saw this. I've mentioned how, like, the shocking twist is going to happen that possibly, most likely, exonerates Bryan Kohberger while he's sitting in prison. And then I saw what the reason was. And I thought, oh, well, it'll be something with, a change of venue, or, somebody comes forward or something. I have shocking news for you, that I see a woman with dark hair, and hopefully it's okay to say this, that I see another murder, guys. I see another murder, and it could be this woman with dark hair. Maybe she said too much. Maybe she knew too much. Maybe they had to make sure she was gone. But I looked at it twice, and I saw the same thing. That the reason he may be exonerated, that Bryan Kohberger may be exonerated, is another murder happens while he's sitting in prison. I mean, how am I out of my mind? Yes, maybe, I don't know. But guys, I need you to comment on this and like talk to me, because I think I saw it twice, and then I saw all of a sudden this woman will another murder will happen, a woman. Well, Bryan is sitting in prison, and it looks to be in Moscow, and it looks to be something where um I mean, it's almost the same MO, but I see that it's somebody that, it sheds light on the fact that there may be a question as to whether they arrested the right guy. All right, I have a request, thank God, because I think I'm losing my mind. Candace? Candace? Are you there? You requested to speak, Candace?
Hear me? Hello?
I can hear you right now. Okay. So, am I out of my mind, or what's going on here? Because I looked right before I started, and I was like, okay, let's take a look at this. Let's find out why because we all think that this is kind of hinky the way this whole situation went down anyway, in the court with the witnesses, with the roommates that were downstairs, with just the whole thing, with the dash driver that seemingly wants to use this for her own, you know,
Right.
little get
You
out of
have
jail
you
free
have
card.
been talking about this dark-haired woman for a couple of years now. I
Yeah,
remember when you picked up on her, and it's just been kind of floating in the background. But yeah, you're not crazy. I honestly think you found it. It'll come up.
I see a woman with dark hair that will be murdered. And
Wow.
again, I'm a psychic. I do psychic profiling. So, you know what? Come and get me. I don't care. But you know what? This is what I'm seeing in the read. And I saw it twice, like literally within 5 minutes before we began. I'm like, how is he going to actually wriggle out of this situation that he's in? And I see this woman that knows too much,
Yeah.
dark hair, and all of a sudden we're going to hear. Remember, I said there's going to be some sort of twist of fate that's going to happen here that will exonerate him in the
Yes.
last podcast. Well, now I'm seeing another murder. And Bryan couldn't have committed this murder, and they're able to tie it to the earlier murders.
Yes.
Somehow they're able to tie it either through the method by which this happened and it's too similar, or there's something going on here, and I'm very scared that I just saw this. So um, I rarely get nervous reading about murder cases, but this is something that has yet to happen. So I'm a
Right.
little bit
Just keep your doors locked.
you know what? I have a security system on my door. I actually just looked at it just now, and I'm like, oh my God, this woman knows too much, whoever she is, this female.
Mm-hmm.
And I see another murder, and I see them directly tying it to the Idaho 4.
Oh wow.
So
You're good. So yes.
I have no idea, but somebody else chime in here. Candace, thank you for telling me I'm not crazy. Did you have a question?
No, that was it. I just wanted to tell you that you're right on.
I've been saying this thing about this dark-haired woman, and I had no idea how it was going to play into this.
Right. I remember.
So
Okay, I'm gonna get
here
off
we
and let
are.
somebody else talk.
Here we are a couple years later. We're in 2025. This was 2022. So 3 years later, almost two and a half. Um, I am seeing this dark haired female, and I'm seeing, like, there was no other way to interpret it other than another murder. So somebody else talk to me, because I'm kind of losing it right now. And I'm looking at my door going, oh my God, my security system better be in check, because it was that frightening when I was just looking at it. And I'm not sitting here saying, oh, I need to be a fear monger. I need to, make people scared. But I'm telling you, I always said the people in Moscow, Idaho need to be frightened that this murderer is still walking around. And everybody seemed to forget that point. They think, oh, well, they got the guy, so they don't need to worry. All right. So, Crime Diva, I don't want to call you by your real name, even though I know who it is.
Hi.
Hi, sweetheart.
Oh,
What am
you
I
know,
seeing?
you're
Like,
not crazy. You're not crazy. And it's so ironic that you're getting this now because over the last, 2.5 years, I always thought, wouldn't it be wild if there was another crime, a similar circumstance when Brian was behind bars?
I never even have said this, either in a post or in a podcast. I've never said this before. This is fresh. This is brand new. I have never said this before, that there's going to be another murder and Brian's in
Yeah.
prison. So, and the thing is, it's got the same markers. That's the scary part. Almost like somebody's mad that Brian got credit for it or
Well, and
something.
I can't remember if we've talked about this before, but one of the things that baffles me about Brian taking this plea is what wouldn't whoever did this want the credit? And he's not saying anything. And so I feel like that's an interesting point that someone would want the credit for it. I mean, look at the notoriety that this crime has, garnered from all over the world.
Well, and not only that, but whoever this is, a card dropped on the floor while I was doing this, and whoever this is very angry. They're angry that Brian took
Mhm.
that plea, that he admitted guilt, and that was their guilt. That was their guilt to own and
Yeah.
to have into infamy that this was their crime and how dare he. And they can't
Well,
actually get to him, to do away with him. So they're like, okay, well, maybe we need to do another one just so that people know it's not him. And
yeah.
it's not
Well,
because they love Brian, it's because they need to own, almost like they need credit for the crime to begin with. And they need to own this and have people all around the world know that this was not Brian Kohberger, but somebody else. And if you took that much time to orchestrate this thing, and I don't think that this was just some random murder that somebody decided all of a sudden, oh, I'm going to do this. I think this was planned for at least a couple of months, if not up to 6 months before,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
there's too many markers for me when I look at it. I look at, um, the care that was taken with certain details. First of all, the sheath has nothing to do with this murderer. They just laughed at the sheath, going, "That's a brand new sheath, and the sheath I have with my actual murder weapon is much older." That's the first
Right.
thing that I saw in the read, was that it was much older, much dirtier. The sheep that was underneath, I'm sorry,
Well,
and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but um the sheet that they showed was almost like new. But or they were claiming it was just, I just saw that it was too new to be this person's sheath that fit that knife.
well,
Talk to me.
I think that you talking about anger is also interesting because as we've learned a little bit more about the details of the crime, this was definitely a crime with a lot of anger behind it. Um, and I just I don't I still just can't wrap my mind around, Brian being responsible for the anger behind this crime and the brutality of it and of course the timeline. And I am disappointed that we've seen over 1,000 photos from this scene and evidence, And none of those photos show us that sheath. Why?
I'm telling you, the sheath in my psychic mind, when I look at the scene, I look at the crime scene. First of all, I saw that it was planted by law enforcement, number one. Okay, I'm still sticking to that story. I still see that that's what happened. And you know what? I'm the only one among us that I know that's actually on here right now, that has actually worked on high profile murder cases,
Right.
in the
Yeah.
news, right there. I'm with either cadavers or I'm with the crime scene where they haven't cleaned it yet. Um, and I'm telling you, the first thing that I saw when I looked at this was the sheath is too new to be something that was just used all of a sudden the
Right.
first time. The sheath I saw that belongs with the murder weapon is actually much older, much dirtier, much more, it has signs of use. It has signs of being in the fields. And part of why I see the sheath was actually even with the weapon was, um, I almost get like it was used in like hunting, like somebody
Mm.
was hunting with that knife, and not humans. I'm talking they were hunting, and then it graduated to this. But I still get the reason behind the murders was because one of these women, and I believe it was Kaylee, said something that that angered this person who was obsessed with her, and they just decided, okay, well, you'll never meet anybody like me again, nor will you have the chance. And I think that happened. And now all of a sudden, this grand gesture, i.e., the murders, um, I don't think all four people were intended to be murdered. I think they just happened to be collateral damage in the house. They could have been witnesses.
Sure.
And then that brings us to Dylan and that whole situation, which I hope somebody asks me about because I have issues with her.
Well, I feel like I, I'll ask you. I
Okay.
think that both of after seeing the body cam footage that was released and the interview that was released today with one of the roommates, I it I have questions about both. I have questions about both of them. So I'd love to hear what you have to say about the roommates.
All right, let me just take a fresh look. Got the cards here. Let me just look at stay both of their first names.
Dylan and Bethany?
Got it. Let me take a look. Okay. Interesting. Let me just see what this is. Okay, I'm being shown who was the guy that was a friend that was dating somebody else that doesn't live in the house? I think her name was Amy, maybe. What was his name?
Um,
Hunter?
oh, Hunter and Emily.
Okay, Emily, not Amy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm seeing him coming up for some odd reason in this thing. And it looks like he may have been part of the the gossip chain, where certain pieces of information traveled via him. unknowingly. Like he didn't know he was actually helping this information to get out there. But I think he, talked out of school, talked out of whatever. He was at one of the parties and he started talking about the girls. And I think it got back to one or both of the roommates that we just talked about, Dylan and Bethany. I think it got back to them. And I think they were just livid. I don't think,
Hmm.
I think any of the tears we saw was because they were afraid that they would be included in the body count. Sorry to be disrespectful again, but I think that they were tears of relief that they weren't
Mm.
actually
Hmm.
included. But I'm seeing something here where it's telling me that Hunter is involved somehow with, like, this communication thing where he didn't realize he was saying things that actually caused other people to hear. And this is how this person that committed these crimes, and I see somebody else as the lookout, but I see one person doing this. And I think
Wow.
this is where this happened. Um, Again, I want to look at who was the guy that Jack Showalter. He was the one who
Yeah.
left the country on vacation with his parents, right? He went to South Africa.
Yes, I know. I heard that he left Moscow in the middle of that night and went to his parents and then was
Okay,
traveling. Yeah.
I'm still saying that that's the Jack I'm talking about.
Okay.
Okay? So if anybody had confusion as far as who I was talking about before, it was that person. Um, I feel that, how does Hunter know him?
Hmm.
Does
I
Hunter
am not.
have any, has Hunter met him through a party, or has something happened there where Hunter knew him, or could have been in contact with somebody he knew? Because I'm telling you that something was said and it got back to the person that committed these murders. Jack Showalter is on my list, okay? And he's pretty high up there. Now, when I originally said that Bryan Kohberger knew who did this, Bryan's a quiet guy, but he's also very observant. So I think he heard something. I think he heard the same thing that I'm telling you that Jack Showalter heard. And I think Kaylee's in the center of it.
Hmm.
I'm not
Interesting.
creating, some sort of um, shocking revelation here. I'm just saying this is when I read on crime scenes for law enforcement, I have worked with FBI and CIA. I have worked with both those agencies before. I have been called in on cases where, they'll never admit it out loud because,
Sure. Yeah, of
and I
course.
told them I knew that. I said, look, that's fine. As long as, you treat me with respect, I will look to see what I can see. Um, so I've worked with both of them before, and sometimes it has to do with they just need fresh eyes. They need somebody that actually just sees something because they're so close to it they don't see it. You know, so
Yeah.
so in this case, I'm throwing around a bunch of names, but I'm being very specific, and I'm telling you, a woman with dark hair. She knows too much, and she's next. And again, I'm looking at my door. I am frightened behind. I just, I hated even saying it. I'm frightened right now that I said it. So I'm staying in here. I'm not going in. I'm not,
Yeah.
I am just going to keep locked in here. I only have one errand where I have to go to the corner next week, but other than that, I'm staying in here. Um, and I won't post anything about me leaving until it's done. I mean, that's how scared I am that I just said this.
Yeah, that gives me chills hearing you say that.
And I don't get scared. I read these things and I'm pretty insulated. I never really get frightened. The only other time I got frightened was when I was on the beach in Aruba at the hotel.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I felt like eyes were on me. I was just we were done filming and I was taking a walk along the beach outside the hotel and I remembered thinking I have to get back as soon as I ran back. I ran back to my room, which was like a mile away. I ran back because I just felt like somebody's watching me walk and I need to
Yeah.
run.
That's scary. I can
It's the only
imagine how
time I've been
scary
on
that
a
was.
quarantine, but I was alone by myself. The rest of the crew, they were doing B-roll and they were doing production stuff they needed to finish up. And I had, it was like, it was still, the sun was still out. It was like, 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. And I was taking a walk along the beach that was outside our hotel, which was the same hotel she stayed at, that Natalie Holloway stayed at. And I ran back. It was the only other time out of 27 episodes where I was scared about myself. And I was thinking, I look similar to her, I had
Yeah.
this coloring, and I thought, okay, why am I out here walking by myself? I'm an idiot. And I ran back. I ran back because I was scared. I was like, somebody's been watching us film, especially because, you know, the night before there were guns on us, while we were filming the night shoot and they were telling us to leave the island. I'm so stupid. Why did I think I could take a walk along the beach? Anyway, um,
Yeah, that's scary. And I don't know. I mean, I this case in Idaho is very scary. I mean, what happened is frightening. It's a real life horror movie, you know?
well,
So
because
it's
it's so
scary.
different, it doesn't follow the same pattern that anything else did. It's very unique as far as its markers, and the way that they were murdered, and everybody thinks, why four of them? I'm telling you why four of them, because I think what happened was, okay, this is something else I'm getting, uh, and only somebody that can communicate with people who have crossed over could possibly see this, but I'm getting that one of them actually identified who it was and
Hmm.
said their name out loud, because either they recognized something on the person's, like, physical person, or when they spoke, something happened where they knew who it was and they said their name out loud. That's why there were four that were included instead of just the one. I think that Maddie was included because she was in the same bed.
Yeah.
But I see that somebody knew, they recognized something about this person and they said their name out loud while they were being attacked. And that was it. I think they recognized something. They saw, um, they knew who it was. I swear to God, they knew who it was and they said the name out loud. So,
I I
I'm
mean,
not
I think
saying, I mean, I don't
that's,
want Jack Showalter and his family to come after me, but I'm telling you, if it was him and other people interacted with him at other parties and they knew who he was based on like either, some sort of physical attribute or something that he said or, something that he was known to do or just, a movement that he made. I
sure.
just think that they knew who it was and they said his name out loud.
Well, there's a lot of information out about that guy, and his name and his face is all over, social media and TikTok and YouTube and all the places. So,
Look, they
you
can
know,
exonerate him all they want, but
yep,
I've worked with law enforcement where they think they have somebody, and I'm like, no, 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 no. It's this person you haven't even looked at yet. And you think that they're not involved, but it's this person. And I've actually worked with them where I draw their attention to somebody else that was able to cover up whatever it was, or in Jack Showalter's case, somebody got paid off. I'm sorry, but I see
yeah.
money exchanging hands. Money exchanged hands there, and that's what happened.
Well, I
He would have
would,
been better. He would have been better if he stayed there and not left the country and just stayed there and laid low for a while. I mean, he's so stupid. Why did he
yeah.
leave right away?
Well, and I don't know the specifics about his trip. If anybody does, certainly chime in. But I was always curious if this was a pre planned trip that he had with his family and he knew that he was going to be leaving. And, w- everything about this crime from the beginning seemed personal. It seemed like someone that committed this crime would have to be very close to that crime scene. Somebody would have to know who all of the occupants of that house were. It doesn't seem like a good house pick for a random thrill kill. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and Jack and Hunter and all of these college age adults, that are involved in this were within close proximity of that house, and it's a very small area.
Look, drugs may be a factor in like some of it, but I really don't think it was the impetus to for the murderer. This was very much a passion kill, and it was a revenge kill.
Yeah,
But I get the reason that the other ones were included. Maddie was unfortunately in the same bed, so um, that's why that happened. But I really think Kaylee was the target. And I'm
yeah.
telling you,
Well,
I'm not saying these names lightly when I throw them out in a public way here. Again, I'm looking at my door going, oh my God, Carla, what the hell are you doing? But you know what? I can't hold back anymore. I just can't. And the fact that Bryan Kohberger got swept up in all of this, um, I mean, there's one word for that, karma. And you know, like there's no other explanation for why he was randomly chosen as the patsy for this whole thing, but they needed somebody quick. He was one of a number of people they had that they could have looked at.
well, it's interesting now that we know more about how many people didn't really like Brian. students, colleagues at the university, and maybe even some law enforcement that he had encountered prior to this crime.
And it
It's,
wasn't just not being liked. It was like he he ended up alienating himself. And I don't think he realized he was doing it. I think a lot of people that um, suffer from certain mental illness, they don't realize how obsessive they are, or you know, irritating they are with some of their comments. I just don't think
yeah.
he understood. You know, I mean, I'm sure I put people off from time to time with some of my stuff, but I don't care if people like it or not. I really don't have. But I'm pretty self sufficient, so I really don't care. Um, but I'm still looking at my door right now, just in case. Uh, I honestly haven't been scared working too many murder scenes except for this one and Natalie Holloway. And those are the two. Even when I worked on the Zodiac Killer, and that was on season 3, I didn't have the same level of personal fear. Like for some reason, I am making sure that my door sensor works and nobody's coming near my door, and I don't answer my door unless I know who it is. And I
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
uh,
that's freaky.
and I feel like I haven't been scared too many times in my life for my own self while I'm looking at something, but this is one of those times. Jack Showalter should have been looked at, but the reason he wasn't was because of a payoff. And I'm sorry, he paid them off.
Well, they looked at him all right, they looked at him and even
They said
collected.
they looked at him. They
Sure.
said they looked at him, but they didn't. They just said that they had to look at him, but that was all part of the narrative. I think they
Right.
looked at him because they had to make it look good.
Yeah, and they checked the boxes, according to reports, because I mean, they went into his apartment and collected blood samples from his bathroom. So it's enough for them to say, "Oh, we looked into it. Nothing suspicious occurred," and move along to the next. But
You know,
really? I
with the
mean,
number of law enforcement that have been arrested for murdering their own wives, and I mean, just because you're law enforcement doesn't mean you escape the notice of me. When I see it psychically, like, I
yeah,
don't care who you
it
are.
doesn't matter what your job is. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't look at what they do. I could care less. It doesn't give you license to do whatever the hell you want for your own purpose and get away with it.
Well, I mean, that brings up another thought, that I always got the feeling as well that that house was really targeted by someone, either neighbors that constantly called the police on them or by law enforcement themselves, because there's a lot of incidents recorded where the police went to that house for noise complaints. And one of them was during the day, in the middle of the daytime. Like, who gets a noise complaint at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, like for playing music in a college party town?
I don't know.
I,
I've reported like my next door neighbor at that time. So, I don't know. It depends on what it is, but I think it's not just the number of complaints. I see money exchanging hands for silence, and they
yeah,
don't make enough there in Idaho at the Moscow you know, I'm sorry, but you know, our lead investigator there quits his job, moves somewhere else to another department or whatever. I mean, it was just all too convenient.
Yeah, a lot happened with the
I
people
see,
involved.
I honestly have seen money exchanging hands. Okay, so I'm not taking Jack Showalter off the table here, and he's in my psychic eye right now. And you know what, buddy, you could have played that smarter. It was just
Yep.
such a rookie mistake. Like, you know, like some of the stuff he did was just so rookie. It was just mm. I'm sorry, but the person who did this paid off law enforcement, and that's why all of this went away very fast. They needed somebody
Yeah.
to take the fall though, because you know, there was the money, the university. The university pretty much supports that entire town. So they couldn't have the entire nation and the world looking at Moscow, Idaho as like, this den of evil, and they're not sending their child there to go to school, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I believe
So,
that's exactly why they had to get somebody.
and they had to get somebody quick because they had no idea who it was. I mean, first of all, their investigative skills are less than a big city. And I've worked with big cities. I've worked with Washington, D.C., I've worked with, large cities like New York and whatever, on crime scenes where, it was very difficult to discern who it was. Was it a transient? Was it, the thing is that I'm the reason I've worked with FBI is because I've been able to pinpoint whether or not it happened with somebody who was outside the country, whether it was gang
Right.
related. In this case, drugs may have been like on the periphery of the entire crime scene. Okay. But that wasn't the reason this happened. This happened from somebody personally getting very hurt and very discarded. They were discarded by the female, and I believe that female was Kaylee. I think whoever
Yeah.
this male was put in his place by Kaylee, and she had no idea what she was doing at the time, was sealing her fate. She didn't know.
Yeah.
She was just being herself, and protecting her space. But I think she did it a little too hard that time. And I think she laughed while she was doing it, and that made it worse. You have to be careful when you're putting somebody down, like especially
Yeah.
somebody that's a potential, suitor, or somebody who wants to date you. You have to be careful the way you do it because you just don't know what's going to make them snap. And I've seen too many of these things where I do readings and I'm like, I'm always careful when I'm leaving a certain situation which has gotten entangled in a misunderstanding, or like they think that something's going to happen and nothing's going to happen, but I make sure that I handle their heart and their feelings gently, because I mean, it's just the right thing to do. But I think she was just very hardcore. I think she was hardcore, and she just, that's how she protected herself.
Yeah. She really, really ticked somebody off. Yeah.
The problem is that when this person snapped, and I'm sorry, but I'm still going back to Jack, because somebody who is entitled, somebody that is privileged, somebody that has that amount of money, and I come from a lot of money. Okay, I come from a family that has a lot of money. Okay, now I know those circumstances, I know what those dynamics are. And I'm telling you, this person was like, "Oh, you don't do that to someone like me. Like I'm a catch. I'm, you know, far above your station, and like you don't talk to me like that." And I think that's what happened. I think, it was a spoiled child who had everything, and I think um he just he lost it when somebody said no, because he was used to getting his own way. I want to, again, I have to be careful how I say this stuff, but at this point, who the hell cares? I'm just going to keep watching my door, and you guys keep watching to make sure I log on every day and I say something. Just please watch for me, because I'm saying some dangerous things. All right. Crime diva, I lost you for a second. There you are again. Um, are you back? I added
Yeah,
you.
I don't know what happened. I think my signal went out. Annie, did you want to say something? Sorry, I feel bad I keep talking, but
No, I mean, anybody I've added here can say whatever they need to say. I've already said things that are pretty much boxing me into a dangerous corner here. So please help me. Somebody help me. I'm just, I'm saying stuff that's very, just like when I said Joran Vandersloot did that crime, and I said he's not going to get caught for Natalie, but in a couple of years, he will do this to somebody else. And with the same conviction, I am telling you, I see another girl, darker hair, a murder victim in Moscow, and it's while Bryan is in prison, and they figure out that it couldn't have been him because it looks like either the same weapon is used. Whoever this is wants credit for the crimes. They'll be damned if Bryan, puts out a book or two, and goes on interviews while he's in prison for something that they did that they want credit for. I mean, that's really bothering them. Um, so, Annie, are you there? Annie, I added you. You need to talk now and put your microphone on. I added her. She should be able to speak. Annie. Annie. Okay, add yourself again. Ask me a request again, and I'll add you back on. I I honestly am shocked by what I saw right before this podcast. That it was that someone else will have to, be in a situation. I added you again, crime diva. I added you.
yeah, thank you. I don't know. I think the signal went out and Annie might have
Yeah,
gotten booted out of here.
yeah, she'll come back.
Well, I, I don't like that you feel scared. I don't like that you feel that way, but
Well,
I
somebody's got to come
understand.
forward and say something. So, you know what? If it has to be me, then fine. I mean, I'm used to this work. It's just that I've never personally felt scared for myself, and I've
Yeah.
only had that happen twice. And this is the second time. So, um, Annie came back. All right. So, Annie, are you with us now? I added you.
Can you hear me?
Ah, thank God. Okay. Yes.
Okay. I don't know what happened there. I had to like restart my browser, I guess.
Okay.
But hi, by the way.
Yay.
But
So the things I'm saying are just I today is the first time I've seen all this stuff. I mean, maybe, a lot of times when I'm not shown certain aspects or certain details of something that's very large, very karmic, it's because if I saw it too prematurely, then it would not be acted upon, let's say, or it would not have the same impact as
mhm,
when I'm seeing it now today. So today's the first time I'm seeing this, that somebody else may be a victim. And that's what exonerates him. Logically, I couldn't figure out how is he going to get exonerated? Like I kept
mhm,
seeing that happening. And I'm like, well, it's not because of all the him going pouring through various legal documents or whatever. I didn't think it was that, and I didn't think it was his legal team, or otherwise he wouldn't have taken this plea. So I was like, how is this going to happen? And then a few minutes, like it was within 5 minutes of me starting today, so it was very abrupt, and I was like, and I checked it again, and I said, is this accurate? And I said to my guides, I said, is this accurate? And I saw some woman with darker hair that knows too much that may be the next victim. And then a card that usually represents anger to me dropped on the floor, which rarely happens. It just dropped on the floor by itself. Somebody's mad. Somebody's mad, number one, that he took the plea and that they stole their limelight, their spotlight.
yeah, everything that you're saying has really resounded with me. I think that the crime diva said that she felt that she wondered if there was going to be another victim, and I like 100% felt the exact same way, where it's like
I never
you
said
know
that before. Today's the
yeah,
first time
yeah,
I've ever said that in 3 years, 2.5 years. I've
yeah,
never
and
once said that.
yeah, and I think where I'm coming from, in having wondered it, is that, assuming that Brian is not guilty, somebody who had the ability and the motive and the inclination, for lack of a better word, to kill four people and get away with it, is probably going to kill again. And if it's not Brian, then that person is 100% still out there. So I did wonder, kind of just following that logic, if somewhere down the line, something would happen. I didn't think of it in the sense of it would exonerate Brian, though, just because I feel like they would say, "Oh, this person is like a copycat," or something like that, because,
No,
so
there
many
there
people are so convinced.
either this person is going to admit that they killed the first four.
See,
That's
that's
it
what I
was
had
almost
thought.
like the feeling, the sense that I got psychically when I looked at it. I mean, I saw a bunch of details all at the same time, so simultaneously.
Mhm.
But part of what I saw was that whoever this was wants credit for those first four, and they are going to say a clue or something
Mhm.
about the crime scene or something that they couldn't have known unless they murdered those first four poor
Yeah,
souls.
see, and that makes sense, and that's more along the lines of what I had been, thinking, as far as like, wondering to myself, how is, it looks like pretty much Brian's, done for, as far as no appeal, no, nothing that, he can pursue, as far as, reversing things. And so I thought that, like, probably the only way that any movement would happen, not even being exonerated, but just any movement, is if somebody came out and said something. Somebody who knows more than what they've been saying, or something along those lines. So that makes sense to me, what you're seeing, as far as like what I've kind of been sort of puzzling out on my own, sort of in bits and pieces, like that. What you're saying adds a
Well,
whole lot of like
I
clarity
I
to it as far
think
as like that
I think
goes.
they were happy when Brian was chosen as the patsy for this whole thing and he would take the fall. I think they were happy until they figured out that he is, like the way this thing is unfolding isn't what they had imagined. Like they thought, oh well, he'll be put to death and that'll be the end of that.
Mhm.
But I think the fact that he's and I'm going to say this carefully, but during the sentencing, when Brian said yes to every question
Mhm.
and every person that was murdered,
Mhm.
and did he do this, and did he knowingly do that? I think that right there was the nail in the coffin. I
Mhm.
think they were just like, okay, no. I think it was just hearing him say that so matter of factly,
Mhm.
like he owned that and he did that. I think that surprisingly got under their skin
I think
to the
that that
point. Yeah.
makes a lot of sense, especially and with Jack Showalter. He seems sketchy to me, but I know that his family, I guess, is very connected in that town to that university. You know,
Well, and
um,
he's arrogant. He is arrogant, and
yeah,
his
but
his ego wouldn't have, like I think
it
he
kind
was
of lines
okay
up
with
with
it.
yeah, what kind of you were saying about Kaylee, if she had interacted with him or this person, in some way that made them think, how dare you treat me like that, it
It
almost
was
lines
it
up in
was
a way that
almost it was almost belittling. It was almost emasculating. It
right, and
was
I
it
can
was
imagine that
I
through
I've done that to men before in the past, and I know what that feels like to do that. But in hindsight, I'm very careful now when I'm letting somebody down easy.
yeah,
Like
it's
I'm
such a
careful with their feelings, and I try.
it's such a
You know,
difficult thing to navigate, but I was kind of following that train of thought into thinking, you know, um, the person who did this, what people had projected onto Brian, this arrogance, this need to take credit and gloat and feel so, important and whatnot, like those kind of qualities that might have made someone snap if he were treated poorly by Kaylee or one of the girls, is probably the same thing that makes him mad that Brian took responsibility, because Brian seems to be so much not like that I can imagine, this guy thinking, who is this weirdo, who's that I thought was just gonna try to go down, you know, be convicted and try to appeal it, maintain his innocence and everything. But who is he to now take credit? And who's this guy? He
well,
doesn't have money.
you
He
make a
doesn't
good
have
point.
friends. You know what I mean?
You just I saw something psychically while you were talking, and
Hmm.
the whole Ted Bundy-ish type of uh, you know atmosphere
Hmm.
is somebody that is arrogant enough to think that no one denies me what I want,
Right.
especially some woman that thinks she's more than me. And I think that the fact that Brian took credit for it, because Brian in his mind couldn't get laid if he tried. I'm
Right.
just
Like
saying that out loud.
he must
And
think that
and he's
this guy
looking
is
at
just a nobody.
this person that he thinks that could never get a girl,
Hmm.
let alone somebody like Kaylee, and that he has the audacity to say, yes, I not only took her life, but the three others.
Right. And
And
including a guy too.
I am more masculine than you are. I am more of I am stronger than you are. I am invincible and you are nothing. Basically that's what this person heard.
Right, and to include Ethan in that,
And then
so
the
few,
threat.
so few
The
men are
threat that
taken out that
came,
way.
let's look at the threat that came to the mother.
Do you mean Brian's mother?
Yeah, the threat in court during sentencing.
Oh, that
Oh,
was to Kaylee's mother.
Haley's
Kaylee's
mother.
mother.
Right. I am looking at that as supporting my argument that this person wasn't too happy that
Mm.
Bryan was taking credit for their doings. Like, it's fine that he can take the fall for it and he loses his life, but how dare you assume that you're even on my level, or
Mhm.
that you even have such prowess that you could pull this off like I did. You have nothing.
Mhm.
You're right. You're right. I forgot about that because I take everything that that family says with a grain of salt,
Me too.
Yeah.
which is a whole other conversation. But that's very interesting that you point that out. That during the sentencing, they were getting text messages like that,
Mhm.
Mhm.
very angry, vile text messages, right?
And what's interesting is that, like, if something happens where they would get threat, they would be the family who would come out and tell everybody, as opposed to if someone was else, may have gotten messages or something and they just didn't say anything about it.
Right.
Right, but if Kaylee was the target, which I see psychically she was from day one, I saw it was Kaylee.
Yeah.
So,
That too. I mean, she was
if that's the case, how dare he put himself that close to her? Like, he would never get within 10 feet of her,
mhm. And
and how,
she was beaten. Like she was, so whoever did that to these students, these kids, her especially was there seemed to be so much anger and brutality for her specifically that
I'm not saying that Kaylee wasn't a nice girl. I'm just saying that she knew how to. She had a lot of guys hanging on her, and she knew what to say to protect herself in such a situation. But
yeah, I don't think that that's
if
anything
she had
negative.
if she had been drinking or
Mhm.
whatever, and she found herself, kissing on some guy like Jack Showalter, and then all of a sudden pulled away and said, "Oh, like, you're nothing. Like, do
Mhm.
you actually think
Weren't
you're gonna get with this?" And I think something like that went down.
Mhm.
weren't they together? Because wasn't he at the grub truck with them?
He
And
he
and then he left, right?
From what my understanding is that he was at the grub truck and he like walked with them for a little bit and then he left when they got in their car when they got picked up, I guess. Um,
Right.
and what I
Right.
understand is that like they knew him kind of, but like not really. Because when I had first heard his name, I thought he was like another student or another person in the frat, but apparently he wasn't.
I think something happened. I think, like, maybe, he made a move and she finished it, and then pushed him away or something.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And she would never admit it until, you know, hell freezes over that she was even touching him. But I
Well,
think I think something happened. I don't think that this guy just all of a sudden was a lunatic and thought that he could get with her. I think she gave him reason to think that he could get with her.
Maybe she was interested and then changed her mind, for whatever
Well,
reason, but
and
like
I've been in that situation
I
where,
I think we all have, yeah,
it's like,
to a
"Nah,
certain
I
degree.
don't I" yeah,
It's like,
"I
never
I
mind."
haven't, like, sorry, but no,
Yeah.
no." And you think you wanna go that route, and then you decide no. But, I think a lot of men don't like the fact that women can have that sort of prerogative.
Right,
you
right.
know and I think the way that you manage that, the way that you handle that, is very important for any women that are listening out there, that you have to be a little more gentle. And i
yeah.
don't think i don't think Kaylee was gentle. I think she pushed him away hard and was acting, all street about it, and just got up in his face and said, "Oh, are you out of your mind? Like you're just somebody who's just standing here. Like I would, because I think he said something like, "Hey, I could see us together. I see my children with you," or something.
Oh wow.
I think he made a statement. I think he said something very serious to her. And I think she just laughed and pushed him away, going, "Are you out of your mind?
Mhm.
Like you were some 5-second drunk kiss. Like that was it." But
Mhm.
I think more happened than that. I swear. I see more happening than that, where she could have even slept with him.
Yeah, and she was, the one who had told various people that she felt like she was being watched at times, like from like when she would take her dog out and things like that. So I mean, and it wouldn't be, it would hardly be the first time that a guy has fixated on a girl, maybe from afar, and then like, tried to shoot his shot, so to say, and maybe it's successful, but then like if, she decides to change her mind because for her it's not that deep, but
Well, and
he's
I've
like
seen
very,
it
very
the other way
invested.
around. I've seen
Yeah.
women fixate on men that
Yeah, that is true
I
too.
mean, they're frightening to me.
Mhm.
So just from what I can tell, I think
It
that
seems it
something
seems a
happened.
lot
I
more
definitely think
plausible.
something happened. This was not unprovoked. I think that this
It
person
definitely
had
seems a
an
lot
interaction.
it seems a lot more plausible than some random guy, aka Brian, who didn't know any of these people, had never been there, was not connected to them in any way, and then
I
just
think if some
randomly
woman
decided
came
to
up,
go kill
I
four of
think
them.
here's my take on Brian. I think if some woman came up and like started kissing on Brian's face, I, I don't think he could handle it.
Yeah.
I
I
Yeah.
don't mean
think
to
he would.
laugh, but
I think he
No,
would
it's
run away.
okay. It's
Even
in
if
it's
he was
endearing.
attracted, you
yeah,
know,
I think that he would just be like,
he would be
I don't know.
awkward. He would be awkward, and he would back the hell up out of that situation. So
And a lot of men are awkward in that way. Like it's he's not the only person that or the
yeah,
only man that would be that way. You
yeah,
know?
But
exactly.
what struck me about the way that like there are these complaints about he was quote unquote creepy to women and stuff is that like, nobody said that he was aggressive toward them after being turned down. Because you hear about some of these people who will be like, well, I didn't want to go out with you anyway. You're not that great and that kind of thing. But, he wasn't nobody said like he responded to being turned down with anger or aggression or
I
anything like
think the
that.
dates that he has had were initiated by women somehow, and then the women just decided, because he was higher minded or maybe spoke on a higher level, more educated level, or just odd. He would say things that were odd, that they were just like a little bit creeped out, and then they stepped away from it. But I think that Brian initiating a dating process, I'm not seeing it psychically. I'm
Hmm.
not seeing it.
He seems very like I kind of wish that he would do like some kind of interview just for the fact of that I want to observe what he's like, speaking to someone one on one because he seems like he's very robotic and kind of awkward and whatnot. And so I just wonder how that would play out, seeing him just having a conversation with somebody, which we've
Well,
never
and I think
seen,
all of his selfies and all of that stuff, I think that was him, trying to, get up the courage to like do something one day. Maybe one day in the future I'll have the courage to ask some woman out. But I just don't. I think that he felt that's why he had a makeover with himself, because he thought, well, maybe I'm too fat. Maybe I weigh too much, or maybe that's why women don't look at me. Maybe if I start working out and I start, looking the way that I think they want me to look, maybe that'll be enough. But the thing is that his personality and his mindset were always meant to be unique, and you know, he I think he knew that with the way he was, he would either be with someone who was the same way, and had the same odd quirks that he did, where they were two odd people being together and they found love. I think that's the only way that would have happened for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
He was trying to measure up to other people's standards of what he should be, just like many women that I read try to do that. They try to measure up to, they get the breast implants, they go and they they get online, they make sure they're half naked when they're online, and all that stuff. They think that's going to work for them. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I see the smartest, most beautiful women that I read, and you wonder, how in the hell do you blow up your whole world and you think you're less than, and you allow some guy to twist you into such a little person. And I've watched it happen with some of the most beautiful, smart women. And you know what, it's just, if somebody can manipulate, and they know the art of manipulation, they know what they're doing. And it's
Mm-hmm.
up to me to identify it and get them the hell out of that if I can. That's part of my job. So um, I just honestly, Jack Showalter, you know, is he going to lay back? Is he going to allow somebody else to take credit? I'm sorry, but I'm just going to name him. If I'm
You're
wrong,
not the not the first one.
That's
if I'm
literally
So,
what I was gonna
wrong,
say. I'm like, you're not
yeah.
the first one to do.
if I'm
Because
wrong,
yeah.
I'm wrong. It certainly wasn't Jack, the other Jack. Um, and and if I'm wrong, I will own up to it and I will issue a formal apology in a public way. But I'm sorry, I saw too many things tonight before I got into this. And this woman with dark hair, I'm concerned for her. And the thing is,
And
they think, oh, we have the killer, he's behind bars, he's isolated, he's by himself, everything's fine. And
and
what
you
are
had
they going to
mentioned
do? What are they going to do if some woman gets murdered in a very similar way? What are they going to do over there?
it's interesting because you had mentioned a couple of times before a dark-haired woman, in connection with his exoneration, and I think that as we sort of
But
discussed
I
those in our
never
previous
knew
lives. No, I
exactly. And
I
I
think we were
never
assuming it
knew,
was his lawyer, the
but we
dark-haired
just
lawyer.
assumed it was just going to be like somebody that works with him or somebody that is
Right,
in his
because
defense team or something. And then tonight I was shown it's somebody that knows a lot
hmm
about the situation, but knows too much.
yeah, and
And
that's what I'm saying is that like you had put, kind of the you know, not idea, but like you had sort of put those pieces of a dark-haired woman and his exoneration, and had sort of mentioned, maybe it's his lawyer who has the dark hair, who he seemed to have a bond with. So for the quote unquote update that you think that or saw that she might be murdered was just seemed like a whole other,
well, I
like
mean,
none of us
I've
saw that
never
coming.
had, but I went and checked it twice.
Yeah.
I always have to check my work, so I went back in and I
hmm
saw it again, and
Yeah.
that's the only way that this would reopen, is if either that
I'm just kind of
happens
like
and they take credit for this one, they take
yeah.
credit for it, or they're caught
I'm just
in the middle.
subjectively like, I mean, obviously I don't want anyone to get murdered, but it's just kind of fascinating for me to see how you had the pieces kind of, a few months ago, and then there's clarity coming, if that's how things are going to play out, that it's like, here's this stuff. You know what I mean? I hope that makes sense.
Well, and that's a very good point you bring up, because a lot of people ask me when I'm reading them, it's like, well, why don't you see all of it like right now? And it's like, because each piece of the puzzle has to be timely
hmm
within the the fabric of an investigation or karma or group karma, and you can't put the cart before the horse. Like there are certain things that have to happen, and
Because
that's where I don't jump the gun. Like as a psychic detective slash profiler, I don't jump the gun. I collect all these details in my basket, and I don't try to piece them together. I say, well, maybe it's this, but I don't know. And I will always say, I don't know how that fits in. But remember, I said this kind of thing.
right, and
Remember that.
Yeah.
if I can say, that's what sort of, because I'm new to your kind of space, but that's what sort of um gives you more credibility to me, because um because there's so many, people who are um do readings and psychics and things like that, and it's like, a lot of them will be so sure that XYZ is going to happen, and they have all the information. And for my beliefs, I believe that the future is kind of always shifting and changing and stuff. And so the fact that you have been consistent about the way you receive and kind of deliver information, and that it, feels like it makes a lot of sense and whatnot, is what makes you, so credible to me. And there are very few I mean, I believe in psychics, but I believe that a lot of them, um you know are not genuine. There's very few that I believe are genuine, and you're one of the ones that I do believe is genuine, because of the way that you
I
approach
am
this.
very honored.
So
Thank you.
I hope that,
Thank you.
makes sense to say and everything. But yeah.
Well, a year ago, if I had said the same thing, or I had posted that information, hey, I'm getting this up front, that there would be another murder, it wouldn't have had the same impact as right now.
Mhm.
Now all the pieces seem to come and fit together now. Whereas
Because there's
before,
extra
I was left with
context.
other pieces of the puzzle that were just like outside the box. And I'm like, well, where do these go? Like, I had no idea that I was going to see that today at all.
Yeah. And the thing is that what changed is that he took that plea deal out of nowhere, because prior to that, everyone thought that this was going to go to trial and he was going to maintain his innocence till the end. But him taking that plea deal changed all of that. And I can see where that would change in the mind of someone who was ready to, sort of let Bryan be the silent patsy, but not that Bryan would take credit for it. And that changed the game. You
It
know what I
changed.
mean?
It changed the tone of
Yeah.
the event itself. So now
So it
you can
makes
see
sense.
that free will. You can see with
Right.
that particular thing happening, how free will choices can change something that is happening right now and change
Exactly.
it in a dramatic way because of one free will choice.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So it was
That's
never
interesting.
about Ann Taylor. I thought, oh, we're going to be talking about Ann Taylor tonight.
I kind of forgot about Ann Taylor.
And then I saw this, and I'm like, oh my God, guys,
Hmm.
like this is what I'm seeing, and I'll own it. Like I see it. And
Hmm.
I hope to God they're taking precautions in Moscow right now.
So, Carla, do you feel like this dark-haired female is she's related in some way to this case and is still in the Moscow area? Because I know a lot of these young adults have moved out, of that area, graduated, whatever they
Let me look.
did.
Let me look. I'm gonna look to see if she's still there. Is this dark-haired female that I'm seeing that's in danger? Does she know? Does she know the killer? Does she know who he is? And does she know him? Does she interact with him? Yeah, and she's worried. She's worried right now about herself. She's trying to stay low key. She's trying to stay low key, but she's worried. She's worried because she knows so much. She's close to this group of people, and she's close
Okay.
to this person that committed these crimes. So she's afraid. He may have confided in her for what I'm seeing here, but she's worried. Okay, it's not like she doesn't think that this could happen to her. I'm telling you right now, she's worried. Does she still live in Moscow or right nearby? Does she still live in Moscow? Let me see. Huh. She she got worried the second that Bryan went to, that he took this plea and he was isolated in prison. She got worried right then. That's when
Hmm.
she got worried. Not when she knew all the stuff, but when he took the plea. So it may have been the reaction from the guy who actually did this that she was like, oh, holy hell. The guy may have flipped out in front of her.
Hmm.
I'm telling
Okay.
you, this will happen again. Just like I said, it will happen again with Joran Vandersloot. And I said he will do this again a couple years from now. When I made that prediction, I was in the helicopter in Aruba, and I said he will do this again. He will not get caught for Natalie, but he will do this murder again, and some other girl.
Yep. Yep.
And I have footage of me saying that on camera 2 years before it happened. And I'm telling you right now, this girl is in danger because of what she knows. She's close to this, i.e., she could be close to this person who did commit this crime. And when Bryan was taking the plea deal and he admitted during sentencing that he did this, either she witnessed who actually did do the killing flip out in front of her, something. She knows too much. That's the big thing, right? That's the takeaway from today's read. She knows too much. She knows too
Yeah.
much. And she's afraid. She's afraid because she knows too much. And now what is she going to do?
Well, and now with Bryan in prison, that means the person that may have really done this is
Free to do it again.
free. Yeah.
Well, the thing
Yep.
is that she never thought that she would be the target until she watched. I swear to God, I think that's what I'm seeing. I think she watched him flip out.
I feel
The guy went ballistic when every yes during the sentencing came across the screen. It was like, okay, that's it. It was one thing to have him take the fall for everything and be a patsy. It was another for him to be so just nonchalant about the way he did it. Like that was his masterpiece. That was his thing that he did. That was his crime of passion. How dare he just say it like that?
so nonchalant is a great term for how I perceived a lot of behavior on that body cam footage. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of nonchalant behavior
Yeah.
from multiple people.
It
And
just,
I know people think I'm insensitive and I get ripped apart by some people on this platform and thankfully, I don't really care. I mean, I'm just here to have conversation, and I'm okay having conversation with people that I may not agree with. Like, that's the point of having good conversation.
Right.
I hate the crime occurred, but in the end, it's a crime. The victims are victims. Okay. It's, just like any other crime with victims. And I sensed a lot of dramatics and a lot of nonchalant behaviors, that went on in that body cam footage. It was weird. It was very weird. And I
Well,
watched it multiple times.
I
and
feel
you
the
would
same
think it
way.
was rehearsed or maybe staged or something, but it was almost like they had their own little powwow before everybody showed up, and that's why there were so many hours in between,
Oh,
because
yeah.
they needed to get their story straight, and everybody met and said, "Okay, say nothing, just say the facts, and maybe this will go away."
Well, and then we learned that they were all put in the same hotel that night, which is how, we figured out everybody was at that hotel with the police, which is when they removed the bodies from that house around 9 o'clock that night.
Mhm.
And you stick all of them in a hotel together, like to be together, and they were all scared and worried and hunched up in rooms together, like doing what?
No,
Talking about
they.
everything?
Well, that's the thing. I think a conversation happened before the 911 call about what do we do? How do we say this? How, what do we do? And I think everybody came up with this plan that, just say the facts of what you know or and whatever, and and maybe this will just go away. I
Yeah.
think the whole thing about, oh, we were sleeping and we slept through it. Nobody slept through anything.
Yeah,
Um,
that's no one was sleeping.
Nobody
I
was
think I
sleeping.
think Ethan may have been passed out, I think that he may have been crashed out. But other than that, no one was sleeping in that
No one
house.
was
And
sleeping.
yeah.
Murphy was barking. Like, none of that. I mean, this is real life stuff. So they had to come up with a narrative, and it had to be the same. So they had to compare notes. All of them talked with each other before anybody had one police officer in front of them. They all talked
Yeah.
about what they would say.
And that would explain some of the behaviors that we witnessed in that body cam footage. And I call this case the case of coincidences, because there are so many coincidences in this case. And I, you know, hate to bring it up, but for instance, the Vampire Diaries. Like, how much of a coincidence is it that the words that the roommate heard are words that were often said in the Vampire Diaries? Like, I don't know. And I'm not
That broke my
it,
brain for a while. I was like,
it
it's almost word for word, and I was just like,
Well,
I
and
I don't think it was like subliminal, like prompting or anything like that. But what I picked up from that was they they had to come up with something that made sense to them, so that when they were telling it to law enforcement, they all had to sort of say the same story.
yeah,
So
and believe what they're saying,
right. So they had to say something that they knew. In Vampire Diaries, they knew. So they had to say, okay, let's just go with that because that sounds good. That's you know because there was no. Did they know who did it? No, I don't think any of them knew, but I think that there were
I don't know.
conversations. I think there were conversations about certain parts of it that happened months before that crime.
My
And
read
I
on the
think they
roommates,
were scared that they would be next.
my read on the roommates is, I mean, it's definitely, you know, shady that that they were, claiming to be asleep, but they were like up all night texting and on social media and things like that. But it doesn't, I've never really thought that they were, you know, like I certainly, have and don't really think that either of them like is the killer. Like some people think that, but you know,
No.
um it just seems to me like, they're not necessarily guilty of anything, but they certainly didn't help and possibly made the whole thing worse by trying to cover it up because I mean, you know,
Well, they had to
if
make
they were
they had to
right, if
make
they were
themselves look
scared
innocent, and
and
they had to
right,
cover their own story about what was happening. But I also
right.
get that
And I think
I
that
don't
they're
think there was a
kids.
lot of love for Kaylee
Hmm.
with either one of them.
Right. And I think that kids, in general can be, you know,
Mean.
not make the best decisions and whatnot. So if you had like, a group of them together with that peer pressure and like, you know,
Well, and I think that there were some interactions between Kaylee and maybe Maddie, that rubbed them the wrong way, and they just didn't.
yeah, and that might contribute to
It's
them
sort of,
being more
yeah,
okay with.
it sort of shaded their answers toward the whole thing, like, hey, like if you treat guys the way you treat guys, well, this was bound to happen, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah,
and I
so
think that she may have
yeah.
treated people in general like that, because we've heard other, rumors, quote, rumors about these girls and how they would treat other people, other females, and bullying and, you know, probably men and women alike.
And
Well,
I think that she might have been more abrasive than people probably, like, because I mean, if you look at her family, it's like, and I'm not trying to like shade them or anything like that, but like, at the sentencing, they were the only ones to give impact statements that were vengeful as opposed
Yep.
to,
Yep.
remembering of the victims. It was more getting their vengeance out on Bryan and wishing for bad things to happen to him and stuff. And so,
Well, and
and
I think her family, that brings up a really good point, because I think her family was just conditioned to be fighters, I mean, no matter what it is in life, no one's going to give it to you. You have to fight for every little thing. And
yeah.
I think that it wasn't so much they needed the attention, but they needed to be right,
Hmm. Just
you know?
headstrong, and generally like there's not really anything wrong with that, but it can rub people the wrong way. And if it collides with somebody who's like, well, nobody's going to treat me that way,
Yeah.
then you have this kind of perfect storm of she's just being herself and just being the way that she is, but you know
Well, and I'm
unfortunately
going to
that's
say the
not going to work for
disclaimer.
somebody.
Let's say the disclaimer now. Not that I
Mhm.
really care at this point. Yes, I'm a psychic and whatever, and what I'm
Right,
saying here. But
supposedly,
you
like,
know what? You know what I really hate, though? Let's just say what I really hate right now is when I see psychics do podcasts or like YouTube videos or whatever, and they say these disclaimers saying, "Oh, it's for entertainment purposes only." I'm not entertaining you people. This is what
I've
I
noticed
see.
that popping up a lot
Yeah.
lately, and it's like, oh,
Like,
okay.
I am not, I said these things, and this is what I have seen in my
Hmm.
read. If it's wrong, I will apologize, and certainly I will apologize in a very public platform and a very public way, and I will say I am sorry. But this is what I get paid for every day, because
Hmm.
I'm accurate, because a lot of times what I see in a crime scene happens.
Hmm.
So I get paid for this skill, whereas
Carla?
most people don't. They don't have.
Hi, Carla.
Yeah.
I just want to say something. You're the type of person who says what they mean what they say. And I am just amazed because earlier on you said Bryan Kohberger was actually being threatened. His family was being threatened. He was getting threats. And it just brought me to the realization that you just said, that Jack, with his arrogance and all that, maybe at the beginning he told him, you better not say anything or else. And now the arrogance in him is saying, wait a minute, I should get the credit for this because I did it.
Well,
Does that make sense?
I agree because I think it was an afterthought. I think it was like,
Mm-hmm.
in theory that would have worked, but then when it
Mm-hmm.
actually happened, and then when it actually was the sentencing, and it was actually
Yes.
happening in front of him, and
His
and
arrogance wouldn't let him, like, oh no,
right,
this can't be. Mm-hmm.
he wasn't about to let somebody just say yes 5 times or 6 times and be done with it. He
Mm-hmm.
was like, I spent a lot of time doing this, and I had
Yep.
so many feelings during this event, these murders, and I'll be damned if
I got chills when you said that there may be another one because that it just like hit me in the head. I said, wait a minute. If he was giving all these threats and now he's saying, wait a minute, I'm I am so good. I mean, I am perfect. Nobody knew that I did this, but I got to do it again. He can't
I,
take the credit for
but
this.
the thing is that I think it's again, don't misread the intent of
Hmm.
the new victim. I see somebody with dark hair. I see it being a female, and I see it being a very similar. For some reason, I don't know how yet, and I have to. I'll look again. But when I was being shown, I got the idea like there were certain signatures to this new murder that's about to happen. Certain
Hmm.
signatures about it that were the same, that were not publicized. This was maybe redacted with some of this information that has come out. Maybe it
Right.
was
Nobody would know but them. Hmm.
right, but I get that certain, either a technique or the way the blade, like there was a certain marker on the blade itself. Maybe it had a nick in it, and there's a certain nick in the blade that created a signature cut.
Hmm.
Okay, something like that. There was something that was irrefutable, that made it like, oh my god, this guy's striking again.
Yeah,
It's
there's always something that they leave out just in case.
but I got that it was
Hmm.
some but I got that it wasn't a copycat, that it was the actual person. And it wasn't because Brian was taking credit so much, but more like a combination of this girl knew too much and she threatened to say something.
Hmm.
Something like she acted scared, like she was going to call somebody.
Like you said, maybe she was around when this guy was like, "What? What?"
I see the guy in the room flipping out. So
Hmm.
I think she
She
may
might have been a witness to that. Yeah.
I think she may have seen it or been in the room with
Hmm.
him when he did, and then he apologized, and she just saw what he was like, and she just pulled back, and he knew at that point that someday she would have to be taken care of.
That's scary. Wow.
What's interesting about you saying that is, again, it kind of comes back to my thoughts earlier about all of these things that people kind of project onto Brian, as far as being, arrogant and whatnot, but also the control. And Brian taking the plea deal and not just going down quietly by being convicted, takes that control away from this person who may have been content to, let Brian take the fall if it was going to play out the way we all thought it was, you know, but by Brian deciding to quote unquote go rogue and kind of take that control back. Because and my personal theory on why Brian took the plea deal in general is, he probably felt like he wasn't going to get a fair trial either way. So if he was going to be convicted, at least he didn't have to, accept the death penalty. At least this way, when he was found guilty, he wouldn't be on death row. So taking some of that control back to himself, and I can see
Well,
somebody who felt like they were pulling the strings in the background this entire time flipping out when Bryan decides to do something completely unexpected, if that makes
and here
sense.
we have Thompson, who's going somewhere else, and he needs this all wrapped up tidy and neat with a little bow on top, and he needs to leave pronto, and he doesn't have time for this thing that's going on, that's dragging on forever. Like, he was more than happy to do the plea deal.
Right, because he knew
More than
even if
happy.
Bryan was convicted by jury, there would be decades of appeals. I think he said something like that in an interview where he was like, this way it's so much easier that the families won't have to deal with decades
He
of
doesn't care
appeals.
about the
But
family.
he just
I'm
doesn't want to have to deal with
sorry.
it.
I am I am so sorry, but he didn't care about the families when he made that decision.
Yeah, not at all. I don't think he cared about the families the entire time.
Oh my God, no.
No, he cared about
Like,
his
I
retirement and
stood there, I
reputation.
laughed at that, going, this guy doesn't care about them. He cared about his own ass and getting himself out of Dodge and where he needed to go next.
Yeah.
And he had a career move to make, a lateral move to make. And so, he needed that to happen pronto. So he didn't have time to be, going up against Ann Taylor, who he actually, why has Ann Taylor stayed so quiet? I think that's just how she is.
Mhm.
I think that's her demeanor.
Yeah.
I think that's her MO. I think that's how she is. I think she just doesn't air her dirty laundry out there, and she doesn't like people taking control of the information.
Yeah, that
Which
makes
is fine.
sense. She seems like that. As far as like, she's never um tried to, you know, like some like I remember thinking like I think it was right when it was announced that Bryan had taken the plea deal, like I think one of his professors like immediately went on like News Nation maybe or something like that, and I was like, wow, some people just really can't wait to get to the media.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
she's never, given that vibe or, done anything that would indicate that she's one of those people like that. So yeah, that tracks.
And I think she's been in touch with Bryan. I don't think she is. I'm not really sure she's officially on his team anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I think, like, she did her job and the job is done. I think she can be called back in and requested to come back in
Yeah, so
if
I
this thing changes.
I don't know how it works with a public defender, but I feel like it's not like they're on retainer or something after the case closes. I think that, you know,
No, I think it was over when it was
yeah,
over.
so I mean, I think that
And
he doesn't have a
and
lawyer anymore, really.
I think if new information or new developments happen, as I'm seeing psychically here, shockingly seeing today, tonight, um, I mean, you guys have to come find me if this shit goes down, because I'm serious. I will be scared. I will be triple locking my doors, because that's how vivid the image was in my head when I saw it. And I'm like, oh my God. It's not because they need to do it again because of their need to kill. Uh, let's correct that. It wasn't this person, this male that I saw, it wasn't his need to kill. It was his need to control his image. That's why it's going to happen
Yeah.
again. It's PR. It's PR. He needs to market
It's
himself.
his ego. His
Yeah,
ego.
he needs to market himself, and himself out there the
That's
way that he wants people to see him. And, this was just like, I did all that for this. And it's more about how he looks and how he is perceived and his legacy and his story as he cycles off this event. He's not hiding in the shadows somewhere, I'll tell you that right now. He's the same arrogant person that I saw doing it in the first place. But he does have a short fuse. And this woman
Mm-hmm.
that I see that I'm worried for right now with darker hair has been witness to this. She either slept with him, is sleeping with him now, has sex with him now. Something's wrong. She knows it. And
Do you think it was someone there that night?
the girl with dark hair, or the
Yeah,
guy
the
who,
girl with dark hair.
I mean, look, was she at the house that same night? She was there,
Yeah.
but then she left. She this guy, whoever he is, he dismissed her like she was nothing. He almost did to her what Kaylee did to him.
Mm.
Same thing.
Wasn't it the DoorDash driver who said that when she was walking around, she saw somebody in the upstairs bathroom, like a girl with dark hair who kept ducking down,
Yes.
and she said it
Yes.
didn't look like any of the victims, so probably wasn't
Oh,
Xana.
Yes, she did say that.
And we don't know who that is, or even, I guess
yeah.
technically how accurate that is,
I'm
but
not. I'm not dismissing that. That could be part of what I'm seeing, but I'm not going to make that retrofit what I
mhm,
saw before. I mean, if it does, that's great. But it's. I'm just telling you what I saw, and then we'll
mhm.
see how this plays out. But
Well,
I
what I was thinking and kind of thinking out loud is that it's sort of like puzzle pieces, falling together because as this information started coming out, and the DoorDash driver said she saw this person, I know a lot of us were like, well, who's this, random person? And just we really don't know who all was going in and out of the house that night and whatnot. So, it tracks that
this girl, this
there's
girl
somebody who could be there.
is associated, affiliated with, you know, maybe in juxtaposition to, these people in that house. Yes.
Mhm.
It's not her first time being there. Let's put it that way. But
And it would make sense if it's, someone who's close to the situation and knows too
does
much.
anyone know where this Jack Showalter is at this point? Where is he?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything about him in a while, I think.
Which I'm sure he loves.
I think that, I mean, don't a lot of those people live in Boise?
Oh, I
I
don't know.
I, I feel like there's a little bit of presence from some of those individuals in that Boise area.
It seems like, and I've never been to Idaho, I'm not familiar with the area, but it seems like a lot of the students who came to that school were, lived in places that were within like either, short distances to a few hours away. So if not in Moscow, he might live somewhere close like that, like Boise or
Yeah.
some of these other
Well,
places that are,
look, he fits
relatively
the
close.
profile of what I saw. He fits the profile. I'm not saying it's him for sure,
Hmm.
but if I were consulting with law enforcement at this point or with federal authorities, I would be telling them, look, don't take him off the list yet. Do not remove him yet. Keep an eye on him because I see that this will happen again. It's the
Hmm.
second time in my life I've worked on a case where I've said that. And the
Or
first time happened. And when I said it would happen, I said it'll be a couple of years, but I see another girl. And it's the second time I've seen it. And that happened today when I saw this vision. So that's why I'm a little bit afraid, looking at my door, looking at the locks, making sure we're all locked up. you know, just keep your, you guys know how to look for this information. Don't convict anybody unless we have proof of anything, but keep an eye on the people I talked about. This
yeah,
girl, I'm worried
definitely.
about this girl because
Definitely.
this girl is worried right now. She knows that she could be next because he alluded to that in some way, like, oh, you think you're not, you think you won't be next, you think I couldn't do this to you too, or something like that. Like, she got up in his face about something,
Mm-hmm.
and she knows who it is. She knew from the second she knew who it was, but I have this feeling like there's some sort of an attraction there, like she's attracted to him, or maybe much more than he's attracted to her.
Mm-hmm.
And she's fangirling him, wanting to be with him, and he's discarding her the same way that Kaylee discarded him. That's kind of what I'm seeing. So,
It makes
have
a
I
lot of
been
sense
wrong
to me.
before? Yes, but I usually don't get details this specific unless somehow those details fit into the picture. I'm not going to let this Jack Showalter thing just go. Not yet. He fits what I see. He fits because he's privileged, because he has money, because I saw this person paying them off for their silence, for them to look the other way, to take his alibi and just say, okay, I'm telling you.
I don't remember what I think he said he just went home and went to bed, right? Is that what his alibi was?
Are you
Like
kidding
after
me?
No,
he saw me?
no, he drove to Boise.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
At
And why
2 in the morning?
why did he drive to Boise?
I guess because he had the family trip planned. I don't know.
Well, it'd
Mm,
be interesting to know how far in advance that trip was actually planned, where he was, or maybe this event happened because he knew he was leaving the next day. Did you
Gave
ever
him an
Right,
think
alibi.
that? Like, if it was him,
right, right.
what a
yeah, I
perfect
can't.
time, because you're leaving in the morning. Like, let's take care of business now.
Wow.
Yeah. And Kaylee
Yeah,
happened to be there
I'll
that
sleep.
weekend.
I'll sleep on the plane, kind of thing.
Yeah.
yeah,
It was just, I'm sorry, all of this is just way too convenient for me. And yes, I have been wrong, and I will admit, like a big girl, that I am wrong. I'm wrong. I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, but I don't think so, guys. I was shown this shocking twist, and I was like, how is he going to get exonerated? Like, I just couldn't figure that out because I kept seeing it. I kept seeing it. I kept seeing it. And then it wasn't the way that I thought it would be. And I see it being because the same murder, possibly with the same weapon, the same manner in which the others were horribly, you know, like the same thing's going to happen twice in the same little town where nothing happens. Come on.
Yeah.
That's very true. That's the only way it would exonerate him, because he's got no appeal to go to.
Look,
That would be the only
if
way.
if I had thought about that narrative before, I certainly would have said it before 2.5 years from the point where it started. I would have said something along those lines in one of my podcasts or one of my posts. I would have alluded to seeing something like that. Today was the first time, 5 minutes before I started this thing, and it scared me because I checked it and I looked again and I said, oh my God, this girl's next. Yes, I hope that it doesn't happen. Of course, I hope it does. I just, but you guys keep me informed, please, because I can't see all the stuff.
Yeah.
You guys see all the stuff and live and breathe this. So can you please, somebody, a bunch of you, just keep me informed somehow?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to read a little bit more about it. I like reading the court documents, and I that's really what I focus on doing,
Yeah,
not as much of the social sleuthing, like with what these young adults, who they were hanging out with, and kind of the drama that was going on with all of them. But I'm intrigued now, so I think I might try to read a
well,
little bit of what people have been
and if
discussing.
you can post it, and then I'll repost it, or post it underneath one of my things with this
Yeah.
podcast. So that way we can tie the podcast to you researching that piece of information that's related to something I said here tonight. So that'd be great.
Yeah.
That way
Yeah,
people
I'll
don't have
do
to go
that.
searching. Don't you hate it when like you hear something, you have no idea where it is on somebody's page and you're like, oh my God, like there's
I
Yeah.
Well, and this case has been an incredible amount of information to take in.
right.
So
So I'll just keep the thread underneath, um,
for tonight's
start a
link.
I'll start a thread here about, everybody's thoughts. I'll do that as soon as we're done. And then I'll have it up on all the other venues on YouTube and whatever within the hour. But put it on YouTube too. Like if you find something that's directly related to something we talked about here tonight, please, the more information we can put out there. I'm just hoping this girl is reading this stuff, or maybe somebody gets her a message. Like I'm looking at my door and making sure it's locked right now. I'm hoping she's doing the same thing. But the problem is she's attracted to this guy. She's
That's
attracted
crazy.
she's
Yeah.
Mm.
attracted to the devil. It's like
And there probably is that sense of threat or being scared. I mean, if I knew or was hanging out with someone and knew they were capable of doing what had occurred in that house,
yeah. But
I would
that's even
be
part of the
scared
reason
too.
that's part of the reason she's attracted to him, because of the
Sure.
you know
Yeah.
oh my God, like every hair on my arm is like straight up right now.
I'm gonna make sure you post every day,
Yeah,
three,
some of
four times a day. If you stop, I don't know. I'm gonna say something.
yeah, just sure that I, do a proof of life and make sure I'm posting on this Twitter like once a day. I don't call
Please.
I'm sorry. I still have problems calling it X. I know it's X, but I still want to call it Twitter because
I know.
I
I
I
I
do
I
can't
miss
too.
do it.
I miss the little blue bird. I'm
I
sorry.
know.
I totally
X is so bland.
I missed the little blue bird and it was so pretty. Oh my God. Anyway, is there anything else that I mean, we didn't talk about Ann Taylor at all, hardly. I thought the whole podcast would be about her. Where is she? What's Bryan doing in the cell? And then I saw this 5 minutes before we started.
Yes, she's
And
already out of the picture.
yeah, I
Yeah.
just, I honestly, Never in a million years that I would psychically see that. That's how I know I was in psychic mode, because
Yeah.
consciously as Carla, I wouldn't have thought that at all.
Mhm.
But I know that I was in psychic mode because it was something that never would have occurred to me.
I'm
And I'm
just sitting
smart.
here
Well,
kind of like it's so it's so, I don't know the right word, sobering, I think, but not, that's not really the right word, but like, just the weight of it and the scale of it, of, four people lost their lives, and, you know, um with the assumption that, say, theoretically, you know, uh this did happen where, people got paid off and things like that. I don't, want to put that, say that 100%, but theoretically, it's it speaks to the way that greed and the ability to be bought off when four people are dead, is horrible. And then that a fifth person might have to die too, not to mention the wrong person, potentially dying in prison, and it's like, for what? For ego? For money? Like, it's so like,
Well,
just sitting there and really thinking about it is just, it's
let's look at
awful.
who's running our country right now. So, we look no
Exactly.
further than the leader of this country at this point.
It
So,
is, and this is something that I've been grappling with just in general for the last few years, as I've gotten older, is just seeing, from the highest levels of government to, your local, elections and everything in between, of just how often it seems that, greed and lies and cover-ups and everyone
It's
being out for
exhausting.
themselves, is it's
Hmm.
exhausting. And it's like,
but
It
I,
notice,
is.
humanity's
but
supposed to be
notice
better than
now
this.
everything is coming to light now, though, because we're in eclipse season
Mhm.
this year. This year, many of the things that were hidden and veiled will, there's nothing they can do about it. This stuff will come out and it
Thank
will leave a
God.
stain. Now, what price will be paid for the information coming out and the truth becoming, I mean, it will be undeniable and irrefutable truth.
And I
But
think that that's something for me that really sticks with me, because obviously, I don't want this, a fifth person to be murdered. But at the same time, I don't want, you know, Bryan being innocent to die in prison either. Like, I think, even just for, it's why I've latched onto this case so hard, is because in order to keep believing in humanity, I need the truth to come out, and for, lies not to win. And it's like, if the only way for that to happen is somebody else dies, it's like, I don't know how to square with
well,
that. But at the same
the
time, it's like,
way
how
the
did we get
power,
here?
look, the United States is a young soul nation mainly. I mean, the older souls are in Europe and Turkey and Egypt and, China and Japan. Like, the older souls are there. And, this is a relatively young soul country here. There are mature souls sprinkled throughout. And, but the basic underpinnings of the United States are young souls who, one of the hallmarks of being a young soul is having power issues,
Hmm.
power and greed, and, you know, uh, um, winning at any cost, and, you know, like, just winning in general, and it doesn't matter what the cost is. And the thing is that we're all examining this now, and history will repeat itself. But right now, what's most important isn't so much that humanity remains humanity. It's more that we recognize that these little shortcuts that everybody is taking just won't be shortcuts in the future. I mean, they'll end up destroying you
Hmm.
in the end. you know, the legacy that Donald Trump thinks he's going to have when he does cross over, which, you know, I wasn't kidding when I was saying, you know, I think 2025, before the end of this year, we're looking at something with him. I'm not going to say anymore, but we're looking at something there.
This is unrelated to Bryan Kohberger's case specifically, but because and I don't know everybody in here's, you know, political leanings, and you know, it's not really about that, but just I personally, you know, am left leaning, and something that I saw when leading up to the election, because you know, I don't feel that Trump is, you know, the right person to be in there right now, but that's neither here nor there. But leading up to the election, I kept, you know, thinking like, you know, if he does win, and with, you know, kind of Project 2025 and all these things that I disagree with and don't want to see happen, um, I went like kind of, you know, exploring into like, you know, trying to like meditate and things like that. And like something that kind of I landed on was, you know, if he was elected, it would be necessary in order to break these things wide open. And
Oh my God, that was almost verbatim what I was just going to say.
and now I
No,
feel
I mean
like,
it was almost verbatim what I was going to say to you
yeah,
right before you said
and
it.
I feel
Um,
like it's with this Epstein thing because both sides aren't letting it go.
it
And
wouldn't have happened unless this got to the point where it was so bad that then it would affect the necessary changes where we
yeah,
would have growth and
because
we would understand why that was wrong.
yeah,
What-
and I thought of that when you were saying this about this being a young soul country, and how, you know, there's so much that needs to be kind of, you know, remedied and rebuilt in a way, and the way that it's happening, you know, kind of now is what's
You know, but
necessary.
like I said before, I don't think political parties will be forever. I see the party, the whole party situation will be abolished, you know,
I think so
because
because
it
it's
will do
not
so much
sustainable.
damage to not only our country but the rest of the world. It will do so much damage that they're just going to get rid of it,
Yeah,
you know.
and one of the things that bothers me as far as like, you know, because it's hard for me because I'm left leaning and my family is right leaning. And so, you know, having to kind of balance that sort of
Mine was the same way.
thing.
Both my parents were
Yeah,
hard
but it gave me
Republicans.
sort of the extra perspective to be like, you know, it's really, it's not about either side. What they're doing is they keep us fighting with each other so that, you know, collectively both sides can kind of pull the strings and whatnot. And so I think that like, you know,
It's
having
gone beyond
parties,
party. It's
yeah,
gone beyond party
it's
lines. It's about being respectful and like, you know, the thing is, the one thing you said about rebuilding, you know, that we have to go through this to rebuild, but if they don't know the tools and they don't have, if they have not harnessed the correct tools to rebuild and they know how to rebuild with the correct materials,
mhm.
then, you know, I mean, we have to wait until everything sifts out to the point where we figure out what is it that we need to rebuild, because we certainly can't do it the same way it's been going for hundreds of years. We got to change that.
Right.
We got to change everything.
And I think that you know, there's definitely a uh an awakening kind of that's happening where I feel like Trump's presidency, you know, and the way it's kind of playing out, especially again now with both sides being like, hey, why are you trying to cover up this Epstein thing? Um, you know, is I think going to make it more um you know, more Americans, I guess, will be willing to wrap their heads around creating a new system because what we have doesn't work.
Well, we had to
Um,
all be affected in a very personal
yeah,
way. You know, we all had to have like a personal slight, you know, or a personal, um, you know, like we had to be harmed personally by what was going on in order to even care, because most of us just
Mhm.
didn't care.
Right.
We just went about our lives and ate our food and cooked our meals and had our holidays and whatever, and nobody really cared.
Mhm.
They were just going, everybody had their own lives and their own thing, and it's like, let them do whatever they're going to do. So we had to have a personal stake, we had to have skin in the game, in order
Mhm.
to really care about making changes that are going to affect not only this nation but all nations, and where, hey, now it's hurting me, we got to do something,
Yeah. And I think I got a little off, I have ADHD, so I tend to run off tracks, but I think ultimately, where I was going with that was that, like, it's just, it mirrors this case where, I don't think that uh I think we're seeing the beginnings of change in this country, but I don't know if, a full, overhaul of the system will happen in my lifetime. But this case and these things that, you know, are closer to home, so to speak. I mean, I don't know anybody involved in this, obviously, but I'm very invested, and it's like, I might not see the world change, for the better, in my lifetime, but I at least want to see, you know,
Oh,
a
I
little
think
bit of
you will.
change. You know
I
what I
think you
mean? Like,
will. I'm already seeing that you will.
well,
So you,
that's reassuring.
yeah,
but
no, you will. So don't
yeah,
worry that you won't be able to see the fruits of some of your thoughts and intentions, because a lot of that will come forward.
I hope
Um,
so. And with the Idaho case, it just, overall it makes me so sad for everybody, but at the same time it's like, you know, I can't just sit with it the way it is now.
but, everybody was too complacent with everything, and you know what? You pay the price.
Yeah.
If you don't care on a daily basis to some degree, this is what happens. If you don't, feed and water your plants or your flowers, they're gonna die. I mean,
Mhm.
it's the same thing. It's like the caring and nurturing of our country, our world, where we live. And, I have a feeling a lot of life will become a lot more simple,
Mhm.
and it won't be so industrial anymore. And a lot of things will simplify. I'm not saying we're going back to, like, where, it's, where it's just basically, farmland and everybody's farming in their own patch of land. No, it's not like that. But
Mhm.
it's it will be simpler. It
Yeah.
won't be such a
That makes
headache
sense.
to get through every single day figuring out your insurance or figuring out this.
Mhm.
It'll be simpler. Like, there won't be
Right.
such a headache about just getting through each day.
Mhm. Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll
Yeah.
get our humanity back.
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
I think when you're less involved with all the intricacies of trying to navigate all this administrative nonsense, and then it will get back to humanity, because you'll be thinking about your neighbors down the hall, where you want to talk to them, and just how are they doing,
Exactly.
and
Hmm.
like, how's your day, and oh my God, did that really happen, and and just
Nurture and caring.
having
Hmm.
conversations with people once again,
Mhm.
instead
Right.
instead of everybody yelling at everybody else. My God, everybody calm down.
Everyone has been so angry the last, at least, I don't know, 5 years or so. Like, everyone's so angry all the time. And
Yeah.
even
It's
on,
terrible.
I mean, Twitter is so, like, I've been posting a lot more, and some of the responses that I'll get, just like out of nowhere for no reason, just people being hateful, and I'm like, it's like, wow, why are you so angry? Like,
Well,
but you
because
know,
no one would give them the time of day unless they were. So, I mean, a
yeah,
lot
yeah.
of times anger will substitute for, some sort of a megaphone, and this is their way of being heard. People scream for attention. You'll notice that what I do for attention is that make singular statements, and then I step off of it. And I don't need attention. I just make my one statements, and boom, like there we are. But
It's it's really satisfying, and this is petty of me, but it's really satisfying to like, because sometimes I've blocked a lot of people by this point, but sometimes things will come up in my timeline from someone I've blocked or whatever, and it's like they're posting like a screenshot of someone else who's blocked them, and they're just like, posting the screenshot because they can't actually interact, and I'm just like, it's really validating to feel like you're living rent free in someone's head because you've blocked them and like they're just like more obsessed with you. It's
you have
really
no idea.
satisfying and
You have
petty,
no
but
idea how much I have to live with that every day. And it's just it entertains me, is what it does. It's like,
I
you
was
know,
gonna
yes,
say that's
because
Carla's middle name, block.
like I just swat these people like flies,
well,
because
that approach is what inspired me to, to always, step back as much as I can and be like, don't even engage because, seeing Carla block so many people and like, and then I saw a couple of people mad about it because then I think one of Carla's screenshots had come across my page from someone she blocked or something, and I was like, that's hilarious.
well, the
Like,
thing is
wow, she's just
that,
living rent
they
free.
a lot of people try to ride on my name when they find out who I am and what I've done, and my television work, and that
Hmm.
I've done quite a few things. And the thing is that I'm not talking the material I'm talking about. I live on a daily basis. It's not like I'm
That's
I'm
your life. Yeah.
I'm sitting
Hmm.
on some
Hmm.
sofa, looking at crime scenes and imagining what it could be. I mean, I've had to smell that stuff.
That's
Hmm.
terrible.
Why do you think I have OCD, guys, to the level I do? I mean, some of the stuff I've seen, like on one crime scene,
Mm.
this poor guy, he blew his brains out with a gun, but he also left
Oh,
cleaning materials for whoever found him, and a note saying, "Hey, I left you all this, like Windex and paper towels
Wow,
and whatever to clean it up."
wow.
that
And
is
Mm.
and
something.
like you get to see how people, when they do exit and they do take their own lives, what their personalities really are like. And sometimes it's about, they just cannot take one more minute of
Hmm.
That's
of
sad.
any of it,
Mm.
and that's what
Mhm.
happens. So, but if people think that I'm just sitting here doing psychic readings and, oh, I'm just looking in some crystal ball. No, guys, I have
No.
actually been on the crime scene. I have actually seen it, like up close and personal, and smelled it, seen it. I can't get it out of my head. And
That's the thing too, is that a lot of these people
Mm.
who are so vicious are like people who have, you know,
no idea.
I doubt they have
Yeah.
any,
They have no clue. No,
credibility at all,
no.
and they clearly have nothing better to do
Well,
than to
Mm-mm.
and the thing that
it's
makes me suited for this, if I had to say one thing, the reason I stayed with it was because I am able to compartmentalize to the point where I can look at something very clinically, almost like a doctor would, when they're doing surgery. Like, you're looking
Mhm.
at how you're making a suture, how you're making the first cut, or
Right.
whatever it is that you have to do. So I look at it very clinically, and I analyze it. I take it all in. I don't analyze it and make sense of it right there and then. I take mental snapshots of everything I see, and then it starts coming to life for me later, and I'm able to put it together like a puzzle. But do I get affected by the stuff? Every once in a while there'll be cases where I'm personally connected,
mhm,
but most of the time it's very matter of fact, almost Bryan Kohberger like,
mhm,
where it's not that I don't care about it. It's just that my skill set, the reason I'm called is because I don't get emotionally all wrapped up in it. I look
Mm-hmm.
at the details so that we can make sense of it, so that I can help you,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
not so that I can commiserate with you or hold your hand. That's not my
Mm-hmm.
job.
Mm-hmm.
So, if that
Yeah.
makes me, I try to be, and then after it's all done, then I understand what people are going through and whatever, and the type of loss and whatever it is. But again, I've devoted my whole life to this. So, I mean, I do the private sessions, which actually make me, that actually helps me. You guys have no idea. I don't do private sessions because I need all the money that comes in. It has nothing to do with that. The private sessions, every one that I do, puts me back in center again. I center each time I do one. And it helps me repair myself from looking at some of this shit. Because it's so
Mm-hmm.
bad, some of it. And it helps me heal. It helps me uh, everything aligns then, and I am in a much better place. So that's why I never stopped doing private readings. I could
Mm-hmm.
stop now. I don't need to do them.
No, don't ever stop.
I love doing them though. I love waking up doing them every day because you know what? It's almost like a booster shot for my soul. It's like it has an effect on me where it activates me every single time I do one, and I'm like, it's like plugging me back into a charger. Like I get charged up again,
Mm.
and I
Or
recharge.
keep you grounded.
Well, it's not so much grounding. It's more like it charges me back up again. Like anything that like if I become, um, like if I'm working on a crime scene that's hard and it's so intense,
Hmm.
and then I do a private session for someone, it helps distract me enough to put me
Right.
right side up again,
I
and
get you.
and
Hmm.
it also puts the energy field back in any little holes that are there in my energy field. It seals them up.
Wow.
So
That's
I
powerful stuff.
I get charged up when I do them. So that's why until the day
It's
I die, I'll be doing psychic readings, guys. So
it's
Yeah.
really you know uh everything's not for everybody. And again, I said earlier, there's so many people out there who have I'm not going to speak to anyone's validity or not, but they kind of monetize and market their psychic abilities because it's very much like, here's this thing that I have or I claim to have that you don't, and in order to and so I'm going to use that tool to make my life better. And and there's that. And from the first time that I saw your posts in the Brian Kohberger tag and kind of went to your page and things like that, it's like it sets you apart. And I don't want to come across like I'm just like, oh, fangirly or whatnot, but I just want to express the respect that I have for you because
no, but thanks. No,
I can
I
tell when you
love
post the
hearing that.
readings and the testimonials,
Mhm.
and I mean the from the
Hmm.
customer's point of view, that they've really been helped by you and that you've made a difference to them, and that it really does come across to to an observer as something that you're doing because you genuinely want to help people and because people are genuinely being helped.
Well,
So
and
I just have a
and
lot of respect
what
for it.
people didn't know though was that it actually helps me on every one that I do. That's what they didn't realize was that I get what I get from doing it myself is it's like plugging myself back into a charger and I get charged up again.
Hmm. And
It
it's
And
like
makes me feel happy
that
that
kind of
we're
comes
able to do
across.
that for you.
Yeah,
Hmm.
when you share the
Definitely.
testimonials and stuff, it comes across,
Hmm.
that it's truly
well,
for the
I'm
enjoyment of it, the love
I'm
of it.
glad that Annie Artichoke joined us, and I'm not saying everybody's real names here, so crime diva and Michelle, all you guys have you're all adding um, your little prism or your little perspective on how you're seeing it, because God knows I can't keep track of all the stuff out there, all the things and all the stuff. It's too much stuff.
It's a lot.
It is.
Hmm.
I've followed cases, but I've never gotten as sucked in as I have gotten into this one. And it does take up so much time to just, read these documents and then work on trying to put them together and then talk about them. It's like it almost has to be your full-time job, and it's
Well, and
like,
everybody thinks like, oh, I must have some sort of like love affair going for Bryan Kohberger. I could care less, but
I
you
hate
know
that.
what?
It's so lazy as a
But when I
rebuttal.
see that something is not right,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
that there is definitely something amiss with this entire situation, I'm going to say so. And you know what? Come after me then. I got my door locked. I got, door locked.
You keep making me laugh with your door.
I'm going to say whatever I have to say. And, it is what it is. But, let's see
It's
how
a
this.
very interesting case. It really is. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
taping while I'm talking to you guys. I was taping 2020 because they had a special on Brian
Oh, that's
Kohberger.
right. They were doing their
So
little.
I taped it so I could watch it later, but I'd rather be with you guys. This
Well,
is awesome.
I'm gonna put a post up there, and you guys can, add to it. But YouTube is probably a good place to do it because that's where people like to expound on what they hear in the podcast. It's a
Hmm.
that platform seems to be better for that.
Hmm.
Okay.
So Twitter is not quite, or X or whatever you want to call it, isn't
Hmm.
because the threads are all sort of all over the place. um,
Right.
Hmm.
so if you're part of YouTube, if not, just go over there and just say what tonight's podcast did for you. Once it's up, start posting underneath, because that way people will see that they can do that. And mostly everybody's been kind of good about it. I've been surprised. Nobody's come after me yet. Not that I'm
No, why would we come after you?
in. Hey, you have no idea what I'm going through. At this point, I'm just, I am just trying to do what I do as long as I can do it. But we went for uh, 2.5 hours today, so I think we're going to wrap
Wow.
it up unless somebody else.
Yeah, it's almost midnight over here in New York.
Oh wow! Oh
Same.
wow!
I'm on the East
Yeah.
Coast too. Yeah.
Yeah, same here. Thank you, Carla. And Michelle,
Thank you,
I
Carla.
I I was going to say the same thing, Michelle. I recorded the 2020, and I think once we wrap it up here, I am not going to be able to help myself but to turn it on and go watch it. And Carla, I will definitely post comments on your YouTube channel so that we can all
Well,
keep
Yes, so will I.
generating.
and that
Mhm.
way we can
We
keep
love you, Carla.
track
Yeah.
of
And
the different things that come about here and like develop
Hmm.
that might be happening. That way there's like one place where we can see like all this stuff. It's too hard on Twitter or anywhere else to keep a thread because
Yeah.
hmm
they veer off into other, so
Right.
I'm
We'll keep
sort
it on YouTube. Hmm.
I was surprised I even liked YouTube, and because I never, I mean, it's just been open for a couple of months now, but I noticed that's the one thing I noticed was that it keeps everything organized
hmm
within that podcast, so
I've I've always
anyway.
been more of a lurker on YouTube, but I definitely have been trying to make an effort to comment more in some of these spaces on YouTube. So I definitely, will be doing that for this. And also thank you
Well,
for
and I'll
just
still put a
creating this
thread
space
here.
for us too.
I'll put a thread
Yes.
here if you
Yeah.
want to just, copy and paste what you write here on Twitter X and then copy and paste it over on YouTube. That's fine too. So, that way you don't have to write it twice. All right, you guys.
All right, Carla.
All
Is
right. Thank you
Have a good
again.
evening.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much. Bye everyone.
Friday
Bye,
night.
Take
everyone.
care.
All right, so we'll talk soon and see you next time.
Okay,
Sounds
take
great.
care.
All right.
All
Bye
right.
bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Good
Good night.
night.